And welcome back once again to Cajun Coding. This is St. Raz, and we are using the site Codingbat, the Java courses. We just finished string 1 exercises, and we're moving on to a new topic, arrays. The Array1 series of exercises is going to introduce that to us, and basic use of arrays. I think we used arrays a little bit in maybe the second warm-up series of exercises, but we're going to go ahead and start with that. A few notes about arrays. Array is a data structure, and an array is actually a data type. You notice here these brackets here indicate that the object we call nums is an array, and that array is being passed as a data type into this function for processing. Now, not only are arrays a data type, arrays consist of a certain number of elements, and those elements in the array also have a data type. And in this particular example, you can see we have the keyword int, short for integer, int followed by the opening and closing square brackets. So we're passing in information in the form data type array, and that array consists of elements that are of the data type integer. And they can be integers, they can be floating point floats for decimal numbers. They can be strings, they can be other objects. An array can even consist of elements which themselves are arrays containing elements of another data type. So this exercise here, and of course we'll get into the details of course in how to manipulate arrays, access them. Given an array of ints, return true if 6 appears as either the first or the last element in the array. The array will be length 1 or more. So in this particular case, we're not going to have to worry about the array containing no elements. So the array will have at least one element. Return if true. So since this is going to be returning true or false, you can see our return type is Boolean. See return if 6 appears as the first or last element. Okay, so what we can do is we can do nums, the name of the array. Arrays, like the addresses in strings, character addresses in strings, the array is 0 indexed as well. So there's our first element, nums, 0 inside the brackets equals 6. And also returns true if the last element so nums, and much like we do with managing strings, we can use length equals 6, and everything's fine. A couple things you'll notice, because it is 0 indexed, if you use as the address the length of the array, of course you will not get an answer. You would be out of bounds because you start the counting with 0, so you'd be out of bounds, of course. Now, also when you call the length method on an array, you do not have the open and closed parentheses. Just length is fine. And going on to the second exercise, same first last. Pardon me. Given an array of ints, return true if the array is length 1 or more, and the first element and the last element are equal. So the array has to be length 1 or more, so we're going to check that first. So nums length is greater than 0, and nums 0 equals nums the last element in the array, which is nums length minus 1. Let's see what their hint was. I think this is going to run. Yeah, that's fine. Let's see what their hint was. And of course they are just telling you about the length, nums.length, the first element nums 0. So the last element nums.length minus 1. To introduce you to some mechanisms to find answers if you don't know them, rather than just if you already knew that you could find the length of the array using dot length, that's great. But what if you don't know how to do that? What you can do, go to Google or whatever mechanism you wish to use for doing your research, and use the programming language in your search parameters. You definitely want to do that. You can find all kinds of answers for languages that you're not working with if you don't. So be sure you put that first, and then finding length of array. How about that? Tons of stuff here. Java examples, Geeks for Geeks, Stack Overflow. Stack Overflow is of course great. And let me see. Right here it says declared an array. I've got an array, then I assign the following values to an array. Here it is. First of all, length is a property, so it would be ARR, where ARR is the name of the array. ARR length. Okay, and it's also telling you it would not be ARR dot length open close parentheses. So Stack Overflow is a great resource you can use. Very useful, and so get used to using that. Another good resource is see the W3 Schools. It's a great website. Here we go. Lots of online web tutorials there. Very well organized site. So Java, arrays, finding length. Java arrays. Here's some information about that. Java arrays, and it explains a lot of the basics. How to declare arrays, how to populate them with values. Changing array. Here's the array length right here. Let me see. This says print line, so this is doing a system out print line. Cars is the name of the array, and dot length, and it would put out 4, so you can say they're populating the array with 4 elements. This particular array is of type string, or rather string is the type, data type of its elements. The array object itself is of data type array. So you're used to using different resources. Nothing at all to be ashamed of having your integrated development environment in one window, or an exercise or something you're working on in one window, and then having another window or tab open to resources which you're using to research what you need to learn in order to complete the task at hand. So on to the next exercise here. Return an int array length 3 containing the first 3 digits of pi, i.e. 314. So we're just going to be basically declaring an array and then returning it. Let's see if I can remember how to do an array here. Let me see. Int. Let me see. Name of the array. Pi equals new int. Line 2, what did I miss? Int pi, actually I think it might be like this. Is that where the brackets go? Nope. Let's check it out. Java declaring array. How do I declare and initialize an array in Stack Overflow? And of course there's a few different ways to do that. If there was just a one way all the time, then I would probably have remembered it a little better. Int brackets, this is the data type here, brackets, that's pretty close. This would be the name of the array. I used pi, pi equals new, there we go, new int, and is that what I missed? New int, and I didn't put the brackets there. Is that the only thing, really? That's it. That was the only thing that I missed. Now this particular way of declaring it is going to declare the data type here. The name of the array is here. Now just int pi here is going to declare an integer variable. We're declaring an array containing elements of type integer. So you're going to need this open close brackets there. The assignment operator here, new, is a keyword that tells the compiler to create a space in memory, to allocate memory to that object, in this case the object being an array. And then we remind, I don't know, we have to remind it again that this is an integer containing array. And then when we declare it in this form, what we can do is we can use the curly braces here and then populate the array with whatever we want it to contain, in this case the digits 3, 1, 4. And going on to the next one here. Given two arrays of integers a and b, return true if they have the same first element or they have the same last element. Both arrays will be length 1 or more. So we're not going to have to worry about any empty arrays here. So return, and all we have to do is access and compare the first element. So the name of the first array, A, first element of course is index 0 equals B index 0. And that will either return true if those two integers are the same, or false otherwise. We're going to compare the last ones as well. A, and again the last element is going to be length minus 1. If that equals B, index B length minus 1. Like so. Given an array of length, given an array of integers length 3, return the sum of all the elements. Now in this particular case, because it's only 3, we can kind of do it the long way, which would be to return int oops, the name of the array is nums plus nums index 1 plus nums index 2. Pretty easy. For something much longer than that, we'd probably want to use a variable to hold the current value in integer, and then use a for loop to iterate through the array. There'll be plenty of spaces for us to demonstrate that coming up soon. Given an array of ints length 3, return an array with the elements rotated left, so 1, 2, 3 yields 2, 3, 1. Okay, let me see, and what we can do here is we can declare a temp variable, and we can populate that. We'll just initialize it with nums 0, and this being only 3 elements here, we can kind of do this a long way. What we can do is show you how we put values into an array. And that's it. Now what did I do? First, we've got this integer temp, which we just use as a shorthand for temporary. We just need to hold it something there for a moment. What we're doing is we're assigning, using the assignment operator, the value in nums index 0. That's how we take something out of an index, so we can assign it to something else, use it somewhere. Now we can also assign values to elements in an array, and what we're going to do is we're going to put in nums index 0, using the assignment operator, what is currently in nums 1, and then we put in nums 1 what was in nums 2. So now we've shifted those over to the left. We didn't want to lose permanently what was in 0, so we stored it in temp. And then that rightmost value, the last element in the array, we need to replace with the first one, which we stored in temp. So we put temp into nums 2. And in that manner, we've rotated those to the left, so to speak. Reverse 3. Given an array of ints length 3, return a new array with the elements in reverse order, so that 1, 2, 3 becomes 3, 2, 1. So now we're going to set up a new array, and we do that like so. Now for this problem, we're going to be declaring a new array and returning it. So let me see, int brackets, this is going to be integers. Let me see, let's call this answer. I think that's correct. Let me see. I'm going to Stack Overflow. Lots of answers here, 24 answers, and there's a couple different ways to do that. Oops, let's put this in here. Okay, and you see what we're doing here. Oops, come on now. Okay. And really, come on. All right. So we've got integer is declaring the type of elements contained in the array. The brackets indicate that that is an array, not just a regular integer. Brackets don't go right there. The answer is going to be the name of our array. The new keyword instructs the compiler to set aside memory for that array. Again, the data type of its contents are integers. The brackets there, inside the brackets, that number there is setting the size of the array. Now there's a data structure called an array list and a structure called a list in the Java language. These are a variable size. You can change the size of them. A strict array in Java always has the same size. Now you can set the contents of each element to null or to 0, which are not quite the same thing. However, if you create an array with 3 elements, it will always have 3 elements insofar as the compiler sees it as an array length 3, even if some of those elements are zeros, or if they're nulls, or if they're empty strings, but the size of the array would still be 3. So if it is important for whatever reason for you to be able to change the size of the collection of objects or values, you're not going to use an array. You could use an array list or a list or something, but not an array. For these purposes, though, we can use an array size 3. And now what we need to do is go through our old array and put the values into the new array, but we're going to do them in opposite order. Now let's go ahead and do a for loop for this one. So int I equals 0. And we take answer. I equals, and nums is our old array, nums. We're not going to use I, because if we use I in both spots, we're just going to end up copying the old array. But what we can do is use nums length minus 1 minus I. Then we return answer. Okay, now what we did here, see, we're going to start with 0. As the for loop iterates, we start with 0, so we're going to start just our 3 spots from left to right, 0, 1, and 2. But we want to go from our original array from the last address to the first, and what we do is take nums minus length, nums dot length minus 1 would be the length minus 1. So if it's 3 in length, then the last address would be 2. So what we're saying is take the last address minus I, which for our first iteration through the for loop is going to be 0, so minus nothing. Then as we move to the second spot on our new array, we're going to move to the second to last spot of the old array. So we're going left to right for our new array, and we're going right to left from the old array. And next exercise, given an array of ints length 3, figure out which is larger, the first or last element in the array, and set all the other elements to be that value. Return the changed array. So we're going to set all the elements of the array to the value of either the first or the last element, whichever one is larger. So okay, as we do that, we are going to set everything to an integer. So let's go ahead and declare that integer, and let me see, what are we going to call that? Let's call that max. I'm not going to call it new. We're not going to call it int. Those are keywords that are reserved. So what is max going to be? Well, we could initialize it to 0 or just not initialize it, but while we're here, let's go ahead and set it first. So it's going to be max, whichever is larger, and then we're going to pass in nums 0, nums. Now we know it's length 3, so we can go ahead and put 2 here. Then we're going to go ahead and put that value. We use a quick for loop. And we're going to use the now we're going to set the values, but we're going to return the changed array. We are going to be returning the same array. It's the same object. So nums I is going to be assigned the value we put in max. And then we return nums. And their solution's probably pretty much the same. They might not have used a for loop. What have we got? They didn't bother with the for loop. They probably have fewer keystrokes in here, but you can never be too familiar with for loops. But they did use the math max. If you want to do it the long way, you could do it without the math max function using arithmetic comparators and if-thens. But we're getting familiar with those tools, so let's go ahead and use those tools like the math object and the methods it allows. Array1 sum2. Given an array of ints, return the sum of the first 2 elements in the array. If the array length is less than 2, just sum up the elements that exist, returning 0 if the array is length 0. Okay, so if num's length is less than 2, I wonder if this will work. Return nums, else return, let's do return 10. Now the second part isn't going to be correct, but I don't want to leave it with no return value. So, okay, we'll go over to int. Oh, that's interesting. See, it says incompatible types. Int cannot be converted to int line 3, but it says int open close brackets. So what it's expecting is, you see here, our return type, or return data type is integer, but the data type we're passing in to be processed is an array of integers. So what we have here is when we say return nums, we're returning an integer, but we're returning an array of integers, but what it's expecting is an integer, not an array. And that's why it's important to remember that data types, arrays are their own data type, a collection of elements that each has its own data type as well. So that will not work, and I thought that might be the case, so that's why I checked into that. So if num's length is equal to 0, we're going to return 0, else if nums length is equal to 1, return that element, else return nums 0 plus nums 1. And there we go. And I think we're going to do one more. Not sure if I might make the videos longer later, but for now we're kind of keeping them around 30 minutes. So we're going to go ahead and do this one. Given two integer arrays, a and b, each length 3, return a new array length 2 containing their middle elements. And that seems pretty easy. All we have to do is, let me see. Now, the logic here is pretty simple, but I'm not sure that we can actually return this in one statement, because we do have to create the array, and then we have to populate it. I don't think we can, or can we? That's an interesting question. Might be able to. Let's see if we can. Why not? Well, that's not one. Yeah, that works, but it's not one statement. But I don't think this will work. We're just going to use comment. The slash turns that to a comment. The compiler ignores all that. That doesn't work. So yeah, it's pretty. I think when I originally did these the first time, I tried to figure out a way to do that in one line, but I couldn't figure it out. If there's a way, somebody's welcome to put that in the comments or something. We could look at that. They don't have their own answer for that or anything, so. But pretty simple. It says they're both length 3, so we know the middle element is going to be index 1, and we can populate it just like that. We can also, there's different ways to set up arrays too. We could do new int, and then it's going to have 2 elements like so, and then we can populate it. So answer 0 will have A1, answer 1 will have B1, and then return answer like so. Alright, well, thanks for tuning in, guys. Glad to have you. Hope this helped out. As always, like, subscribe, comments, questions, requests, welcome, and I'll see you guys next time. Happy coding.